Good morning, 4-5. It's Mrs. Gaines, and I'd like to read you chapter 14, please. They ran with stealth, not stumbling or stopping, just fleeing into the night. Dark as the devil's mouth it was, and the wind was sharp as vinegar. Lily could not see a hand in front of her face, and was forced to listen out to the ticking of Melkin's limbs as he made his way along the snow-covered path. The blizzard of flakes eased, and they were halfway up Brackenbridge Hill when the clouds parted and a milk-faced moon, one day wax from full, appeared. The wind battered the frosted tips of the nearby gauzes and whipped cold air in through their clothes as they pushed their way up the slope of deep drifts. They ran up the bank until a tangle of thorny underbrush stuck up from the smooth white surface of the snow, blocking their path. Melkin led them around it, bounding through the white dust that came practically to his chin. Robert was fading fast, stumbling in and out of drifts, kicking at fallen branches until they showered snow. Lily could sense the anguish flooding from him. Water had soaked through his toes of her shoes, and her feet had started to numb. Worse still, her gloveless fingers were beginning to seize up with the cold. She stopped for a moment and pushed back her cap to look around. "We should rest," she said. "The trouble is, I don't know where." Melkin shook furry flakes from his snout and licked his whiskers. "I came this way before. It looks different under all this white stuff, but I think I can find a place for us to stop." With that, he slipped off ahead into the undergrowth. Lily and Robert stood leaning against each other, waiting for his return. Lily realised Robert hadn't spoken since they'd been on the roof. "That was a narrow escape," she said suddenly. "Back there at the shop. Look, Robert, I'm sorry for what happened. If I'd known—" "It's not your fault," he muttered. "Not really." He glanced at her, as if he wanted to say more. Lily felt the weariness lift for a moment, but when his face fell, it seeped back in with the cold. Another few minutes passed in the shivering silence. Then Melkin returned with news of an empty building ahead where they might bed down for the night. "Fine," Lily said. "Let's go there." Hidden behind the copse of the tall larch trees, the derelict mill straddled one of the end of the frozen pond. Its upper half was clad with moss-covered planks and wood that ended halfway down its height like a skirt. Under this, fat red legs of brick, banked with snow, waded in the ice-cracked pond. An outhouse arched over the water wheel, whose uppermost lattices were covered with dripping stalactites. Melkin slunk across the iron-railed bridge and approached the building. He slipped between two planks of wood nailed over the entrance and through a rotten gap in the base of the door itself, his tail flicking as he disappeared into the dark. They stood at the end of the small bridge, waiting for him to return. Lily jigged and clapped her hands to keep them warm, and Robert brushed a shower of snow from the length of the handrail. Melkin's nose poked back through the hole. "It's clear," he barked. "I don't think anyone lives here any more." "Well, now we do," Lily said cheerfully, trying to give them hope. It was almost as cold inside of the old watermill as it was outside. As her eyes grew accustomed to the dark, Lily saw space filled with gigantic cogs. Wooden workings spanned the room, connecting the grindstone to the far end. A chain led up to a wooden trapdoor set into the roof above. In between the planks of the ceiling, weeds grew like blackened upside-down garden. "It's like crawling inside the chest of something gigantic, broken mechanical," Lily whispered to Robert. "Or the heart of Clock Tower," Robert said. "My papa would probably know how it worked, be able to explain it all." "Mine too." Robert patted a cog connected to the shaft of wood. "These must have all turned once to grind the corn, driven by the water wheel outside." She nodded. In the corner, against the driest wall, she spotted a pile of empty flour sacks, and they settled down on them to make a camp for the night. Lily dropped her bundle, and she watched Robert slump to the floor of the wall, to the foot of the wall. Then she collapsed down next to him. She leaned her back against the rough post, shivering in her shirt sleeves, and loosened the laces of her shoes. "Do you want your coat back?" Robert asked her suddenly. She shook her head. "No, you keep it. I'll use my blanket." She unknotted it from around the box and opened it, spreading it across her legs. "We could share them both," Robert said, and he shuffled towards her and tucked the coat under his shoulders. Lily dragged the box between her feet and threw the blanket across his legs too. The silk lining of her coat gave off a sharp whiff that reminded her of Thaddeus's tobacco, and the blanket smelled of Papa and home. Lily missed him, and her mamma too. Tiredness seeped through her bones. She took off her cap and put it against the wall behind her head to make a pillow. Then she shut her eyes and she waited for sleep to take her. But instead, only the sickly feeling of